So, Sue, we know each other quite well, really, since we've both been on the court together for exactly the same time, on exactly the same day. But I didn't escape, you did escape the horror that I had, which was to try to have to introduce people time after time and not forget any names. But anyway, it's lovely to talk to you. And let's go back a little way now. You were at university in York, I believe, is that right?
That's right, many years ago.
Can you say a little bit about what were you studying there?
I was studying economics and social history. In actual fact, I should say I went to York to study mathematics, which is quite extraordinary, really, thinking about it. But quite quickly realised I didn't really want to be a mathematician. And in those days, it was quite easy to switch, so I switched.
Well, economics and social history sounds a really interesting thing to have been doing. So, and that prepared you, I should think, well, it could prepare you for so many different things, but once you finished at university, what did you go to do then?
Well, we were very lucky in those days. We're talking about the early 70s when, you know, there were jobs and it wasn't you know, really as difficult as now. And a lot of my friends were going off to train as accountants, and they were getting salaries of something like £1,200 a year. And I thought, that didn't sound like very much. So I went and took a job in a very small company for £1,500, thinking that was a good move. Bad.
Yeah.
Bad.
Yeah.
Someone should have said, take the 1,200 and get a qualification.
Yeah.
So I came down to London, got a job with a company which I hardly remember what it was called, tiny company, and then quite quickly moved on to work for larger companies. In fact, the first move was to Unilever. Yes,
and in that you share some background with one of our past masters, NigelStapleton. He was at Unilever same time as you.
He was, yes, and he actually knew my husband better. We met, Juggy and I met at Unilever, and he was already working with Nigel.
Oh, so Unilever brings back some good memories for you. If you met your husband. Yes.
And it was a fun place in those days. A lot of young graduates were recruited to work on all sorts of market research and economic studies, and we had a good social life. And as you say, that's where I met my husband.
Yes, and it's in a lovely setting, isn't it, York University? That you've
York.
Been to before that. Sorry, I'm going back now. But yeah, were you at Unilever House?
Yes, yes.
Yes, right. Which is still their headquarters, I think, isn't it?
It still is, yes.
Yeah.
Down the road from Stationers' Hall.
Yeah. Okay, and then after that, you have rather a change of direction, is that right?
Absolutely. After sort of 12 years and 2 young children, I thought, hang on a minute, this isn't really working. I was a working mother, and they get me jump on aeroplanes and go off to New York, and I had a 6-month baby at home, so I thought, perhaps I'll do something different. And I had some friends who were teaching, and they said, you know what, with your background in business studies is a new subject in schools, and we need people like you. Why don't you become a teacher? And I went, oh, okay. And I became a teacher.
Yes, that's one of the reasons I suppose why I sort of slightly lapsed back into York a second ago, because it struck me when you were saying about your degree that it prepared you both academically, but also in terms of business life. And so that's what you taught, was it, when you moved over to teaching?
Well, yes, I taught more business studies than economics. In actual fact, because I had to go and do a postgraduate teaching course to start with, and I thought I should do it in economics, and the economics course was full. This was at the Institute of Education, London University.
Yeah.
And the economics course was full, and the business studies course wasn't full. So I got on the business studies course, and that got me into teaching a whole range of business-related subjects.
And that did that take you directly to what used to be called the London College of Printing?
Not directly. I actually started in Weybridge, at Weybridge Tech, for a couple of years, teaching A-level business studies, basically. And everybody I was teaching with was saying, what are you doing? Teaching here? You know, you've got 12 years of business experience. You should be in a university. So, oh, okay. I'll go and get a job in a university. So off I went and got into higher education at London College of Printing. Yep. Which was an extraordinary place to end up, not having had a background in printing or publishing.
And then the London College went through a series of sort of metamorphoses, and it kept changing its name or rebranding.
Yeah, well, it was actually, to start with, it was London College of Printing at the London Institute. I bet no one can remember that. And it ended up as the London College of Communication at the University of the Arts, London. But the actual college itself, more or less, remained the same. And a lot of people, a lot of stationers have studied there. Almost every printer I meet and I ask, what their background is, it's amazing how many did an apprenticeship course or a short course or a 1-year course, 2-year course. And it was really interesting to hear Ali talking about having been there studying bookbinding. And I remember that course really well. It was a fabulous course. So the same college changed its name, is now London College of Communication.
And where was it based, or where is it based?
Oh, it's always been at Elephant and Castle. Well, not always, but over the last 30, 40 years, Elephant and Castle, a really beautiful part of London, by one of those big roundabouts.
Yes, I know it well because I lived and worked at Lambeth for 5.5 years, so very nearby. So, but the University of the Arts in London is pretty widespread, isn't it? It's various locations.
Well, exactly. It's actually the largest art and design institute in Europe, I think they say.
Goodness.
It's got Central St Martin's, excuse me, London College of Fashion, Chelsea, Wimbledon, Camberwell, all those colleges make up the University of the Arts. It's enormous, 30,000 students.
And did you teach the same sort of course all the way through, or did you move on from one to another, or how did it go?
Yeah, I was pretty flexible. I mean, 1 minute I'd be teaching strategic management to journalists. The next minute I'd be teaching marketing to printers. The next minute I'd be teaching business subjects to fashion students, actually. I did quite a lot of teaching at the London College of Fashion, which is quite different to teaching printers.
Well, now I can see how we've benefited so much from you on the court and in other ways with stationers. Now, what brought you into stationers?
Well, that was the link, London College of Printing.
Right.
And when I was back there in about 2006, I was very aware of stationers because we were always trying to get our students free places for industry events there. So there was quite a lot of conversation between us and, I imagine, Ben Clark, trying to get freebies for our students. And then Will Bridge, who was the head of college at that time, was a stationer. And he was on, I think it was the industry group that he was on. And he wasn't really that interested in the company, and he was always too busy to go to meetings. And he started asking me to stand in for him. And I used to go to meetings on behalf of Will. And I'm thinking, extraordinary. I mean, absolutely flies in the face of the sort of the way that the company is now run. You'd never have somebody who wasn't a member of the stationers company coming along and sitting on a committee in the place of someone else. But it was fine. No one seemed to bat an eyelid. But what happened quite quickly was the recognition that we better get Sue to join properly pretty quickly. So within a few months of doing this, I was a freeman.
And then since then, I mean, you've been involved in so many things in the company. For a while, you helped run Shine, and we talked about Shine with Ali just a couple of weeks ago. But more recently, you've had a key role on the governing body of Stations Crown Woods Academy. Perhaps you'd want to say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was in on the academy right from the beginning, and became a governor right at the very beginning when Kevin was chair of governors, and have really been, I can't now remember how many years, good few. When did we go? 2014, so that's 6 years. And have been very involved since then. One of the areas I got involved in early on was helping develop the Digital Media Centre. So we set up a committee which I chaired that sat for about a year, looking at how we were going to actually create this centre, raise the money and open it, which we have done. And there's a fabulous digital media centre there. And then, and I think you visited it, did you? Did you see the centre?
Yes, I visited well, I feel particularly enthusiastic about Crown Woods because I'm an old stationer. In other words, I was at Stationers Company School, and we were very sad when that finished some 30 years ago. So I was hugely enthusiastic about a new school. And so I went down there with my wife, who is a special needs teacher and so on. And we had a really, really exciting time, and I'm looking forward, I hope, when things open up a bit, to have a bit more chance to go down there. But at the moment, you're chair of the governors. Is that right?
Chair of the governors, yes. We've been meeting virtually. We've had a couple of governors' meetings. The lockdown happened literally, I think, 2 days before we were due to have a governors' meeting. And it was sort of touching whether it was going to happen or not, and it didn't. So we have met since. So most of my communication has been by phone with Wayne, the principal.
Yeah.
I did manage.
And I gather you were due to have Tom Holland, who's become really particularly well known for his book Dominion. Is that right?
Well, that's nothing to do with the academy. That's an initiative that I have, a local initiative.
Oh, right. I thought he was coming to the academy.
No, that's a different initiative.
Right.
But the academy, I did go down just before the end of term. The trust agreed that governors could visit, because they've been keeping visitors to an absolute minimum at the moment with lockdown.
Yeah, understandably.
So the academy was open again with just limited students at the end of last term. So I was able to go and see it in action and talk through their plans for opening. I mean, they really, really intend to open first week of September, which is not far away now. And the work that they have had to put in to be ready for opening for everybody is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I don't think you just can't get an idea. I mean, lots of stationers, governors in other schools, so they know what it's like, but reading the papers, you cannot really get a flavour for what it's like for the teachers on the ground, getting ready to welcome everybody back in September.
But Wayne is someone of very considerable enterprise and energy, isn't he?
Yep, absolutely. He knows what he wants to do. He walked me around the academy showing me how it was going to work, and it's all about keeping groups of students together and finding ways for them to move around the academy without bumping into other students. I mean, it's even, how are they all going to have lunch without bumping into each other? Where can they eat their lunch? I mean, it is unbelievable.
And bearing in mind, you've done so many different things, so many interesting things. I suppose I'm interested to know, what's been the most interesting book you've read recently? Because I'm sure your interest continues to flower and change.
Well, luckily, I had a little notice of this question, so I have been able to have a little think about, and I have it here. I have my visual aid, and I'm wondering how many people watching this have read this book. This book, which is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, was the joint winner of the Booker Prize last year. It was very controversial because the way that the Booker is set up, you aren't supposed to have joint winners. But the committee couldn't make their mind up. Hopeless. So this is the joint winner. Bernardine Evaristo is a mixed race writer, and the book, it's sort of hit the zeitgeist because there's so much at the moment in the publishing world about the need to recognise the sort of multi-ethnic nature of the readership. And the need for authors to be multi-ethnic, authors from different ethnic backgrounds to be recognised, as well as a wider range of publishers to be recognised. And this book has just come out at the right moment. I mean, the Booker Award is sort of early November, and this book did very well then, and then sort of died off. But it's back now. It's back up there in the charts. It's probably about number 4 or 5, and it's very, very readable.
That's a very good place to come to a conclusion, I think, because as ever, you've given us more food for thought to take our minds and hearts into something more new and more exciting again. But thank you so much, Sue, not just for this, but also for the enormous amount you give to stationers. And clearly we're in for lots more ideas yet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.